Okay. Okay. Buenas noches. We are going to start our Zoom session for chapter 6. Okay, so this semester in 102, we're going to be studying chapters 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we will have a Zoom meeting for every chapter. And what I want to do in these Zoom meetings is go right to our textbook. Okay, so we're going to start in chapter 6 at the beginning, page 168. Okay, and we'll start with comunicación. All right, the comunicación section that will familiarize us with some basic phrases and sayings that we need to be familiar with. And I will go through comunicación, vocabulary, and estructura, the grammar for this for each chapter. Okay, and we'll go in order as it appears in your textbook. And by focusing on these areas, this will prep you for your homework and for your chapter test. Okay. So let's take a look at page 168 and 1 second here, I'm sorry, 165 and 166. And so we're on 165, comunicación, all right? And it says here, podemos hablar contigo. You can go through these exercises on your own to develop your ear and your understanding. But basically, these are ways that you can respond to a request. And since chapter 6 deals with food, okay, so and it deals with dining out, okay, possibly, or you being somebody asking you if you would like something, if you would like particular food item or drink or whatever. And these are ways that you could answer back, for example, okay? And here they are, claro que sí, all right? Claro que sí is yes, of course. Literally, claro means clear, clearly yes, or it's an emphatic way of saying yes, of course. Como no is the same thing. Uh, of course, how not literally is what it means. But again, if somebody asks you, would you like some water? And you were very thirsty, you could say, como no? You could say, claro que sí. And con mucho gusto, I would gladly welcome it, of course, con mucho gusto. Literally with a lot of desire or con mucho gusto. And finally, you can answer back, por supuesto. They all essentially mean the same thing. Okay, they literally are different, but they're conveying, yes, of course I would like that. Of course I would like that. Okay, and so that would be a way that you could emphatically say yes to a request if someone's offering you a food or beverage, for example. Okay, and again, there's exercises there that you can do, okay, that you may want to do. Let me check something here. Okay, let me go to these boxes in each section. You'll often find boxes, and there's some very important information there. Just make sure you go through it. You can click on the icons for pronunciation, but I want to make sure that you look at the boxes and see what they say. So in this same area, how would you respond to a request? Here's more detail. If someone invites you to do something or offers you something, here's what you might say if you want to accept. Okay. Yes, please. Sí, gracias. Okay. Okay. Sí, gracias. We might say, we would say in English more, please. They would say, sí, gracias. Yes, thanks. Um, if somebody offers you something, so you could say, sí, yes, yes, please, sí, gracias. Or you could say, sí, no es molestia. Uh, yeah, if it's not a bother or a problem. Molestar means to bother. So, si no es molestia, if it's not a bother. Okay. What else? Again, here are the phrases we just looked at earlier. Claro que sí. These are other expressions that you can use that are really an emphatic yes if somebody offers you, okay? If somebody offers you something. Claro que sí, como no, all right? They give you an example here where somebody says, to somebody else, me traes un café, traer is to bring. Can you bring me a coffee, please? And the person would answer, sí, como no, yes, of course, all right? There's con mucho gusto. Like someone could ask you, ¿quieres agua? And you could say, con mucho gusto, if you're very thirsty, yes, of course. Or if someone else could ask you, ¿quieres agua? And you would, if you're very thirsty, you might answer back, por supuesto. So again, these are just ways of responding to requests. Okay. Let's and go through these little activities here again. They will prep you for your homework and for the test. But again, I wanted you to learn some phrases and make sure you were aware of those phrases when you want to respond positively to a request. Okay. Um, Now, they gave you ways to respond if you want something, okay? And especially if you want to respond uh, very strongly, emphatically, yes. What here are some more phrases you might use. And again, these phrases can be used in other cases, but here we're going to, since we are dealing with food in this particular unit, it would be more like in a restaurant setting, or if someone were serving you food. So in this particular box, they give us quieres, no gracias. So quieres is from the verb querer, to want. It's the to form, it has the es ending. Quieres is do you want? And then what if you don't want the thing? How do you politely decline? Well, you might say, no, gracias. No, thanks. So let's take a look what they have to say here. To ask someone if they want something, you can use querer. All right, use the to form. Now remember in Spanish, we have two forms of you, of singular you. If you know somebody well, if it's a friend or family member, you're going to use to, okay? If it's somebody you don't know well, okay, someone out in public, maybe your waiter or waitress, your server for the first time, you are going to use usted, the more formal you, okay? So we have two, the informal you we use with friends and family, and usted, the formal you that we use with people we don't know well. Or if we work in a hierarchical organization, it's often a way of showing respect. Usted, we use that as you. So tú means you, usted means you, one's informal, one's formal. This is all basic review for you, but I just want to point it out early in the semester. So if you want to ask somebody, do you want something, like a thing, quieres, and in this case, do you want a coffee? Quieres un café? What if you want to use the usted or informal form? Make sure you're aware of it. Notice the verb changes a little bit. Quiere usted un café? Do you want a coffee? In this case, quiere usted un sandwich? Do you want a sandwich? Okay. So This is teaching you how to ask somebody if they want something. So again, if they're friends or family of yours and you feel comfortable being intimate, you would use quieres. If it's somebody who you work under or someone you don't know, you're out in the public, you're dealing with a clerk or a salesperson, you would use quiere usted. And then they give you examples. And you can use these verbs either with a noun, do you want a coffee? Or you can use them with a verb. Okay, that's why they say infinitive. You can use them with a verb infinitive, an unconjugated verb. Do you want to eat? Do you want to drink? Do you want to play sports or whatever? You can use them with verbs or nouns. Do you want a salad? ¿Quieres una ensalada? Or ¿quiere usted una ensalada? So you can use it with a noun or you can use it with an infinitive. ¿Quieres tomar agua? Do you want to drink water? Or ¿quiere usted tomar agua? All right, so take a look at this. Here's some more ways you could ask somebody if they want to do something. Again, this is all basic Spanish that you should have had in Spanish 101, or you should have seen these phrases. Tener ganas de means to feel like. And it's generally used with a verb. They also here use it with a noun, but it's tener ganas de. Tienes ganas de pizza. Do you feel like pizza? Or tienes ganas de comer pizza. It's often used with a verb infinitive. And the usted form, tiene usted ganas de una cerveza? Do you feel like a beer? Or tienes ganas, or tiene usted ganas de tomar una cerveza? Another one is parecer. Okay, and this is a little more advanced. Here we're going to use the indirect object pronoun with it. If it's the to form, ¿qué te parece? Literally, how does it appear to you? Okay, or ¿qué te parece? Do you kind of means like, do you feel like? ¿Qué te parece una hamburguesa? What do you feel about a hamburger? Or ¿qué le parece una hamburguesa? If you're going to use that form, we use le. All right. And you can also use it with a verb infinitive. Do you feel like having dinner? ¿Qué te parece cenar? Okay. Or ¿qué le parece cenar? If you're going to use the usted form, you use le instead of te. And then apetecer means to appeal to. It's kind of like appear to. And if you're going to use the to form, do you feel, and you could use it with a noun or infinitive, te apetece un café? Does it appeal? Does a coffee appeal to you, or do you feel like coffee? And then le apetece un café with usted form. And you can also use it with a verb infinitive, te apetece tomar or le apetece tomar. Oh, okay, finally, how do you politely decline? And on your exam, I think they ask you, how would you politely decline or how would you politely accept? But if you want to politely decline something, you can just say no gracias. So you could say, ¿Quieres beber una cerveza? Do you want to drink a beer? And you might say, no gracias. But if you want to be more emphatic, you can say, no puedo beber una cerveza. No puedo means I cannot. Yo no puedo. Puedo means I can. And no puedo, I cannot. I cannot. Yo no puedo tomar. Oh, okay. Um, uh, let's see. And then someone might ask you, do you want to drink a beer? You could say, no puedo tomar una cerveza. Or you could just say, I need to do something else. I have to. So that's what they're teaching you here. Debo means I have to. Yo debo or debo. And then whatever you need to do. Yo debo dormir. No, I have to sleep. I can't have coffee. So, ¿quieres un café? You might say, no, debo regresar a casa. I have to go home. Or debo um, debo dormir, I need to sleep. Okay, I wanted to go through that a little bit because this will be on your exam. It's very simple stuff. Go through the exercises and just make sure you feel comfortable, particularly with requests, if somebody requests something of you, if you want to do something, how would you respond? Um, if, if you really wanted to do it, there's various ways. And then how could you possibly politely decline something? Okay. All right. Let's move on. So that was comunicación. So again, go through that section. Now we go to vocabulario. So chapter 6 deals with food, eating out. So what do you think your vocabulario is going to be? Your vocabulario is going to be about food. And again, you should have had all of this in basic Spanish. So this should be review for you. So make sure, because this will be on your exercises that you do on your homework, but also on your test, make sure you're familiar with the various foods and categories of foods, meats, seafood, vegetables, okay, canned foods, dairy foods, okay, vegetables, fruits, okay. Go through the list here. Just spend some time with it. These are things that you should have basically you should have been exposed to, and you can go through and listen to the pronunciation. Okay, so let's take a look at the first group real quickly. So first of all, we're at a supermarket, and comestibles means foods. So we're in the food section, from comer, comestibles, foods. So las carnes y los mariscos, so carnes are meats, la carne, and los mariscos would be your shellfish and seafood. And there they are. Okay. Calamares would be your squid, camarones would be shrimp, carne de res is beef. Okay, literally meat of beef, okay, beef meat. El chorizo is sausage, jamón, you should know these, is ham, pescado, chicken, pollo, fish, carne de puerco is pork, or carne de cerdo, pork. All right. Again, different foods. Make sure you're just familiar with these. El arroz, very important, particularly in Latin America. El atún, tuna, el azúcar, sugar, sopa, soup. Let's move on. Los productos lácteos, like milk type dairy products, y los huevos. So we got los huevos, la leche, milk, la mantequilla, butter, el yogur, yogurt. Okay, flan is like custard pudding. The vegetables would be las verduras, los vegetales, viandas, some people say, el broccoli, la cebolla, onion, los champiñones from the French, or los hongos. Sometimes they're called setas, but hongos or champiñones. Los chiles, peppers, lettuce, la lechuga, el maíz, etc. Las papas. Your fruits, las frutas, there they are. Las fresas, el mango, la manzana. Condimentos, condiments, vinagre, sal, and your beverages or drinks from beber, las bebidas. El agua, water, la cerveza, beer. El jugo would be your juice. El refresco is like a soft drink, vino blanco, etc., a white wine. So make sure you look at those, okay? And again, here's just a different group of foods. You should be able to describe maybe what you would have for desayuno, for breakfast. Make sure you know that term. It would be los huevos, tostadas, toast, eggs, los sandwiches, las ensaladas, salads. La cena is your dinner. Las meriendas are your snacks, bebidas, beverages. Postres, you should all know, is your dessert. And we have the word supermarket in Spanish, supermercado, or even hipermercado, where you have many more things beyond food, like a Walmart. And here's your different places where shops where foods are sold. Carniceria would be a butcher. Fruteria, where fruits are sold. Panaderia would be your bakery. Panaderia, bakery, from pan, bread. Pescaderia, seafood. Verduleria, from where your verduras or your vegetables are sold. Greengrocer. Okay, I am not going to spend a lot of time on this. Again, please familiarize yourself with the vocabulary. Okay, and again, here's your different meals. El desayuno is breakfast. El almuerzo, lunch. La comida is your dinner. La merienda is a snack. And la cena is dinner. Desayunar is to have breakfast is the verb. Almorzar is to have lunch. Comer is to eat. Merendar, to have a snack. Cenar, to dine or have dinner. Okay. Again, make sure you go through these particular exercises. Listen to the people speak and they describe what they eat, and just be able to give back if you need to respond back. What did the person just say? What do they like to eat, etc. Okay, so do these interactive exercises with the vocabulary. Now, obviously, we need to know the food vocabulary. We should also know the words that we use at table, okay, when we're going to eat. How do you say cup? How do you say glass? How do you say fork? How do you say knife? Make sure you know these. These are going to be on your test. They're going to be in your exercises. But let's take a quick look and just go through this on your own. But vaso is a glass, but a cup for like a hot drink is a taza, la taza, una taza de café. Okay, bowl, el bol, okay. Spoon, la cuchara. Knife is el cuchillo, with the double L is like a Y, el cuchillo. Plato is a plate or dish. Tenedor is a fork. And la servilleta is your napkin. Make sure you know those. Again, here's a little more vocab associated with eating, with dining. Al ajillo, fried with garlic. A la plancha, grilled. Hear it all the time in Spanish. Pollo a la plancha, grilled chicken, or pescado a la plancha, grilled fish. And take a look at those words. Dulce, sweet, frito, fried, picante, spicy, hot. Okay. And look at some of this restaurant vocabulary. Okay, when people go to order, when you go to order in a restaurant, you can use pedir. Okay, you can use ordenar. Yo ordeno agua. I'm ordering water. O yo pido una ensalada. I'm ordering a salad. Pedir, ordenar. And in Spanish, uh, uh, generally the term when you go to a restaurant and you want the menu, it's el menú. You could also call it la carta. Your book goes into a lot of detail about the menu. It's not something that I experience personally when I go out to eat in a Spanish-speaking country or area. But your book will tell you that La carta is just a general menu where there's no fixed price. But there is el menú del día, as explained in your book, where you have a fixed price meal with a first course, a second course, and often a dessert included, and they call that el menú del día. It's a very fixed price menu. And your book makes a distinction between that and la carta, which just lists different dishes and desserts and or entrees, and then you kind of mix and match and form your own whatever you would like to eat. So take a look at that, and that is right here on page 170. Let me see, 1 second. Yeah, that would be on page, give me a second here. 174. Okay. And so take a look at that distinction. Generally, when I eat out and I'm in a Spanish-speaking area, I just call for the menu. I don't call it la carta, but oftentimes it is, I guess, technically a carta because it doesn't give you a fixed price meal, okay, already put together. But take a look at that. And finally, let's see. Okay. Now let's go to page 176, if I'm not mistaken here, and we'll get to estructura. So we've looked at comunicación, look at those various ways of requesting things and or responding to a request that you emphatically want something, or how you might politely decline something. That's comunicación. Look at those, go through those exercises. Look at the vocabulario on food and the implements at table, the difference between a menu and a carta, the distinction the book makes. Now we're in estructura. Okay, and estructura is structure or grammar. So let's go see, what is our grammar? What grammar do we need to know? And so here they go. They give you the present tense. They start off with the present tense. Make sure you can conjugate a verb in the present tense, and make sure that you know your subject pronouns. Okay, I, yo, the familiar you, tú, the formal you, usted, the word for he, él, she, ella, then the plural subject pronouns, nosotros, we, vosotros, we're not going to use. That's the plural you, only used in Spain, really nowhere else. And then finally, ellos would be they. Okay, and ellas, the feminine they. And finally, ustedes is the plural you all. Make sure you look through those subject pronouns, make sure you know them, and then make sure you're able to conjugate a verb in the present tense. Okay, that's all they're just putting out here. I'll leave that to you just to review. You should all have that down. But remember, when we go to conjugate a verb, to use a verb with a subject pronoun in Spanish, okay, we get the stem of the verb, and then every subject pronoun, right, has a unique ending, okay? And in Spanish, we divide the verbs are divided up into 3 classifications, okay? When a verb is not conjugated, when it's in its to form, like to see, to eat, to run, to walk. In Spanish, verbs that's called the infinitive form, and there are 3 types of infinitive verbs in Spanish. This is a wonderful fact to know. Verbs will either end in AR in the infinitive, or they'll end in ER in the infinitive, or IR in the infinitive. And you must be aware if you're with an AR, ER, IR verb. Okay, and then that will affect the way that you use that verb, the way you conjugate it. Okay, so just remember that. So here we have AR verbs, cocinar, to cook, escribir, an IR verb, to write, trabajar, AR verb, and aprender, to learn. Make sure that you can just conjugate those verbs in the present tense. And there are quite a few irregulars, and there's some stem changers. Make sure you look through that, okay? And you should be able to do regular and irregular verb and stem changing verbs. Okay. Now we're going to learn how to state things using the simple past. I ate, he ran, they saw. Okay, so we're going from the present now to the past, and that's called the preterite or pretérito in Spanish. That's all it is. So we need to learn how to form the pretérito or the preterite form. And they give us some examples here. Okay, and look through that. And they ask some questions. But let's go to the boxes. This is our lesson. Here they teach us what the preterite is and how it's formed. It's and here it says actividades analíticas on page 177. So let's take a look. The verbs in para empezar, to begin, which is above, are in the preterite tense. Okay, tiempo pretérito. This tense is used when you want to portray an event as happening at a specific point in the past. Okay, and they want you to conjugate these verbs now in the past tense. And again, what determines how you conjugate a verb? It's the subject pronoun you're using with it, right? In English, I would say, I go, he goes. So the subject pronoun was what affected the way I conjugated that verb to go. Same thing in Spanish. How do we conjugate verbs, okay, in the preterite tense? Well, how do we conjugate them in the present? We need to get the stem of the verb. How do we get the stem of a verb? And I alluded to it earlier. It's the same way in the present as in the past. We get the infinitive form of the verb, and the infinitive will either end in AR, ER, and IR. Remember, all verbs in Spanish either end in AR, ER, or IR. We drop that AR, ER, or IR ending, and now we have the stem. So we immediately get the stem. And now we're going to add on universal endings. And those endings will match up with the subject pronoun. So let's take a look at trabajar. And I apologize, your book does it later on. I don't like the way that it presents the conjugations. They should list them all out, but they want you to fill them in. But let's take a look at the verb trabajar. It's an AR verb. What is the stem? You should see it immediately. You drop the AR and it's trabaj. So you would put yo trabaj, tú trabaj, él trabaj, nosotros trabaj, ellos trabaj. Okay, they all will have the same stem. Now, this is what you need to learn. What ending it goes with yo for the preterite tense, and it will be an E with an accent. Yo trabajé. I worked. Now, because we want to put it in the past tense. What about tú? You'll add on haste. Tú trabajaste. You worked. What about él, ella, usted? Él trabajó. You add on an O. What about nosotros? We add on amos. So notice that trabajamos is both the present and the past. How do you know if you're speaking? How do I know if I say we work or we worked? It's the context. Whatever's going on, you'll know immediately. Okay, so you could say ahora trabajamos. Right now we are working. But yesterday, ayer trabajamos. Yesterday we worked. But notice that the present and the preterite or past forms are exactly the same. We add amos onto the ending. Finally, what about the ellos form, the they form, and the ustedes form? You add on aron. So ellos trabajaron, they worked. Okay, let's take a look at ER and IR verbs. This is good news for us. ER and IR verbs have the exact same endings in the preterite. So to form the preterite, you're going to have to learn the AR endings that go with the subject pronouns, and now you're going to have to learn another set of endings that go with ER and IR verbs. So let's take a look at what they are. So let's take a look at escribir. So first we need the stem. What's the stem of escribir? Is you drop the IR ending, it's escrib. So yo escrib, tú escrib, él escrib, nosotros escrib, ellos escrib. Now we have to learn these endings, and this is their universal, never changing endings, because all these verbs that we're learning now are regular. So what is the ending for an IR verb in the preterite with yo, where the subject pronoun is yo? It's going to be an I. And if you've written, it'll have an accent mark on it. Yo escribí. What about tú? It's going to be iste. Tú escribiste. You wrote. What about he, she, and you, usted? It'll be yo. Okay. I-O. Él escribió. Okay. Usted escribió. I-O. What about nosotros? It'll be imos. Nosotros escribimos and ellos escribieron. And again, for ER verbs, let's do an ER verb. The endings for the ER and the IR verb are exactly the same in the preterite. So again, we got to get the stem of aprender. It'll be aprend. So yo aprendí. Remember, I learned. The endings are the same. You learned was be tú aprendiste, iste. He learned is él aprendió. Fortunately, they don't give us the ending here, but they will down below. But you need to go through this on your own. We learned is nosotros is imos, so it's going to be nosotros aprendimos, IMOS. And IMOS is the ending for nosotros. And then for ellos or ustedes, it would be hieron. Ellos aprendieron. Okay, so again, stem and ending. Please learn your endings for the regular verbs. For AR verbs, they will be E and E with an accent mark, aste for tú, O for él, ella, usted, amos for nosotros, and aron for ellos. What about ER and IR verbs? Well, for yo, the ending that you will add onto the stem will be an I, E, accented. For tú, it'll be iste. For él, ella, usted, it'll be io, io. And for nosotros, it'll be imos. And for ellos, it'll be hieron. There it is for you. Okay. And they ask you to complete this chart. So again, I just went through it with you. And these are universal endings, okay? Once you learn them, once you get comfortable with them, just like your present tense endings, they're universal. They're always the same. As long as the verb is regular, that's how you conjugate the verb. And notice that when some of these conjugations will have an accent when written. Okay. They give you vos. I'm not going to go into that, but vos is used in Central America, and it's a bit more intimate than tú. So people would use usted or tú, but oftentimes when it's a little more intimate, they will use vos. In a country like Costa Rica, where I lived, they would use usted with people they didn't know, and then just regularly people would use tú with one another. Very close friends, I noticed, would use vos. So don't worry about vos, but the book does give it to you. It is good to be aware of it. And then there's some countries like Uruguay and Argentina where tú generally is not used. They just use vos instead of tú. So particularly in Argentina. Okay. But you can look through that on your own. But vos you will hear in Central America and in Colombia. You'll hear it, and more regionally in Colombia. But that's about the best I can tell you on that. Okay, and then they just give you some more good words to use with the preterite is ayer and anoche. Ayer means yesterday, anoche. So if I say yesterday, and I start to tell you what I did yesterday, obviously I'm going to speak in the preterite. Yesterday I ate. Ayer yo comí una ensalada. Yesterday I ate a salad. Anoche yo bebí cerveza. Last night, anoche, yo bebí, I drank beer. Or él bebió cerveza. Okay? Or él comió una ensalada. Make sure you feel comfortable with those preterite endings. This is an orthographic rule here in 4. Take a look at it, familiarize yourself with it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But as you know, AR verbs, you get the stem of the verb, and for the yo form only, what is the ending for AR verbs in the preterite? It's an A, an E with an accent mark, ace. And because of that, the stem, when you write it, not when you speak it, but the stem will be written down differently. Okay, so verbs that end in gar, G-A-R, the G will need a U in it. So for the yo form only, the yo form only. So cuando yo llegué, when I arrived, would have to be written with a GU. That's what they want you to see there. And then there are verbs, again, this is only for AR verbs in the preterite, the yo form only. There's a spelling change. You wouldn't hear it speaking. The C of like a verb that ends in car, C-A-R, will change to Q-U. Yo practique, Q-U-E. Okay. And then verbs that end in a Z, zar. The Z in the yo form only will change to a C when you write it. Yo empecé with a C. E ending, okay? So these are orthographic or spelling changes that occur in the preterite tense of only verbs that end in car, C-A-R, gar, and zar, okay? And take a look at that. All right. All right. Now go through these exercises. Listen, develop your ear for the preterite tense. And they ask various questions about the narration above. And you're going to have these on your exam. They're fairly straightforward, but it's a good exercise. Okay. Let's take a look at this question here. ¿A qué hora cenaron anoche? Well, that's the verb cenar, to dine. Look at the ending, aron. So that's the ellos form. So what time did they eat last night? It's the preterite form. Notice in English, when we want to ask about, when we ask a question in the preterite, in the past tense, we would use the verb do and did, because it's the past. So when did you eat last night? When did you arrive home? Spanish does not add do, does, or did with another verb. It's, I think, a strange development of at least the English language. Maybe there's other Germanic languages that do it. I don't know, but we don't do it in Spanish. So make sure you're aware of this. When you see a question in the preterite, in Spanish, in English, we would ask that with did. When did they arrive? When did they eat? When did they serve the food? Spanish, we don't do that. We don't need a did. So, ¿a qué hora cenaron? And they don't use the subject pronoun. It would be understood from the reading above. It's they. When did they dine last night? Look at this one. Estudiaste mucho ayer. When you see that aste ending, you know immediately it's what? The U form. You also know it's in the preterite. So estudiaste means it's a question. Did you study? There's your weird English again. It has to have did in it. That may throw you off. Okay, let's look at the next one. Cuando empezaste a bailar? Well, you have to know what empezar means. Hopefully by now you know. It's an AR verb. Empezar is to begin. It has aste ending, so you know it's in the to, you form, in the preterite. So when did you begin to do what? To dance salsa. Look at this one. ¿Quién conoció? Conocer. To meet. Right? Look at the ending. It's a conocer. I'm sorry, my mistake. I got a little too enthusiastic. Cocino, from cocinar, my mistake. Cocinar means to what? To cook. So look at the ending. It's an O. Well, what subject pronoun has that O ending? El, ella, and usted. So, but it's the quién, who cooked yesterday. And here we don't need the did, but who cooked yesterday is the question. Okay, let's look at the next one. Let's look at these questions. A qué hora? At what time? Cenaste. What does cenar mean? To dine. What does the aste ending mean? The to ending. So when it's in the preterite, when did you dine last night? Anoche. Okay, and here's another one. ¿Dónde vivieron? Well, vivir means to live. Ieron is what ending? The ellos, they ending. Where did they live? Notice there's no ellos there. We don't have to have the subject pronoun as a crutch every time we use a verb. In English, we do. You know, in English, I'd say, I work at, I don't know, McDonald's. I work at McDonald's. In Spanish, I could just say, trabajo en McDonald's. I don't have to say yo trabajo. Okay. So a lot of times you will not see the subject pronoun and you'll be looking at them. What are they talking about? Look at the verb. Vieron. I'm sorry, vivieron. Vivieron, you know, it's to live. It's got an ieron ending. So it's probably asking about they. Where did they live el año pasado, last year? Look at this one. Estudiaron mucho. Aron. What's the ending? It's the ellos ending for an AR verb. Did they estudiaron ellos mucho para el examen? Did they study a lot for the exam? Here it is again. ¿Cuándo empezaron? When did they begin to cook, cocinar? ¿Dónde vivió usted? Where did you live? That one's easy. They give you the subject pronoun. So look through these. Look through these questions. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And again, look at this next exercise here. You're going to have things like this. Okay. Make sure you can understand what they're asking. Look at this. Desayuné a las 6:30. Well, what does desayuné? Desayunar means to have breakfast. Well, that ending is an A, so I know it's the I form. So what does this mean? I had breakfast. Not you had breakfast or he. I. How do I know it's I? There's no yo there. Because of the ending. Please be aware of this. I think it causes trouble for students sometimes, and it makes Spanish so much simpler. You don't have to use those darn subject pronouns every time you speak. Not all the time. Que desayunaste? Desayunar, when, okay, is to have breakfast. Aste. So it's the you form. Que desayunaste tú? What did you have for breakfast? Okay. So look at that. Que cenaste? Aste. So what did you dine on, literally, or what did you have for dinner? Que cenaste? Tú. Not him, not me, you. Okay, enough of that. Let's move on. And let's see here. Okay. Okay. Now, in this lesson, chapter 6, they introduce the preterite tense, how to form it, and we learn the endings for regular verbs. Unfortunately or fortunately, they give us irregular verbs, and we have to learn these. These you just have to memorize. These you have to memorize. So please go carefully through this section of estructura. Learn the, preterite forms of these verbs. Okay, learn the preterite forms of these irregular verbs. And let's take a look now and learn them. But real quickly, decir is to say or tell. Hacer, very important verb, to do or make. Ir, to go. Poner, to put or place. Poner la mesa, to set the table. Ser, to be, as opposed to estar, which also means to be. Okay, so let's take a look at these verbs in the preterite. They have unique preterites. You have to learn them. I can't teach them into you. Okay. So let's take a look. And again, they give some examples here. They give some exercises you can go through before they've taught you how to form the preterite of these irregular verbs. But let's go to the actividades analíticas and let's learn some of these. Okay. All right. And the first one is a bit of a conundrum, but you just have to learn it. Sorry. The verb ir, which is irregular, of course, and ser, which is also irregular in the present, they're both irregular in the preterite. And you've got to learn the preterite. Now, there's a good thing and a bad thing. Ir and ser, to go and to be, in the preterite, conjugate exactly the same way. So you only have to learn what conjugation. Why this happens, I don't know. I haven't studied Spanish, the history of Spanish linguistics, but they came out being the same. Now, it's a good thing because it simplifies what you have to learn, but it can be a bit confusing because, let's take a look. Yo fui, or fui, means I went or I was. Fuiste could mean you went or you were. Fue, él fue, usted fue. You went or you were. Fuimos, we went or we were. And fueron, they went or they were. Now, you can usually tell from context what the person is saying. Remember, the verb ir is always followed by the magical preposition a. Okay? So, and when you ask a question, it will always have a donde. Remember that? So, a donde fuiste? Where did you go? I know immediately I wanted is the verb to go. Okay? But I could ask you, ¿qué fuiste? Like you could say, I went to a costume party and I was a Neanderthal. I dressed up. ¿Qué fuiste? What were you? ¿Qué fuiste? You know it was, what were you? As opposed to a ¿dónde fuiste? Where did you go? So you can tell from context and that preposition a. If I said, anoche fui al cine. A él. I'm using it with a, so you know I mean it as went. Anoche yo fui a él al cine. I went to the movies. Okay. Ella fue a la escuela. She went to the school. Okay. So when you hear that preposition a, you'll know you're dealing with what? The verb ir, the verb to go. But please learn these. Yo fui means I was or I went. El fue means he was or he went. People confuse those. Fuiste should not confuse you at all. It's got an east ending. You should know it's the to form. Fuimos, we went or were, and ellos fueron. Look at these questions. When you have the a in them, you can see they're used as the verb to go. Or when there's no a, it will be identity. He is or was the president, or or if you're giving where an event occurred, you're going to use ser. Okay, so la fiesta fue en casa de Ana. Okay, all right. I think these are all the verbs you need to know. You just have to learn these. You need to spend time with them. When I learned them, we learned them as I stem, U stem, and J stem verbs. Your book doesn't teach them that way, but that's not a problem. There is a very small number. Please familiarize yourself with them and how to conjugate them. But let's take a look. Decir is it's irregular, and again, they're irregular. Normally, when we form the preterite, what do? I told you, you get the stem, you drop the IR, AR, or ER ending. Not here. Not here. These have different stems. They'll have I stem, U stem, or J stems, and you just have to learn them. Okay, so for decir, it's going to be di, D-I-J. It's a J stem verb. I don't know why that's the stem, but that's it. And they have unique endings that you need to learn. They're like a combination of the AR and ER-IR endings for regular preterite verbs. But you just have to learn them. So let's take a look. How would I say I said? Well, first I've got to get the stem. It's going to be di. Notice it here, D-I-J, D-I-J. I don't know why they didn't color it, or embolden it, but it's D-I-J. It's a J stem verb. Yo di. And then the ending will be an E. In other words, the letter E. Yo dije. All right. And then, okay. Now, what about tú? The ending will be iste, dijiste. What about él or ella? It's going to be di and an O, dijo. For we, it's going to be imos, dijimos, we said. Now, when the stem ends in J, normally we would put ieron here, but we drop the I. If the stem is a J and we only have two in this unit with the J, we drop the I and it's dijeron, they said or they told. So yo dije, tú dijiste, él dijo, usted dijo, nosotros dijimos, and ellos dijeron. So the ending here would be iste, o, imos, eron. Not eron, but eron, because it ends in a J. Okay, what about estar? Very important verb. This is not ser, but estar, the other verb to be. It's a U stem verb. What is the stem? It's estuve. Notice the stem is estuve. You have to learn it. I wish they would have put it in parentheses here. So yo estuve. Your endings are going to be the same. What about tú estuviste? You put an iste ending. You were. Él estuvo. O. Imos estuvimos. We were. Now, look at here. This ending does not end in a J, so we put the regular ER ending. Ellos estuvieron. They were. What about hacer? Hacer, what's the stem of hacer? It's not us, it's is. And you gotta learn it. It's an I stem. Yo hice. Okay, put an E ending on. Now we're gonna put an iste ending on. Hiciste, tú hiciste. What about el, ella? It's going to be is, but because you have to put an O on, there's an orthographic change to Z. You wouldn't know this if you're speaking. It's only when you write it. It's not is so with a C, because that would give you eco. That don't exist. It's iso. And then the eos form takes an emos ending, so hicimos. And then the eos form is hicieron. Now notice it's a full I-E-R-O-N. And then poner, to put or place. Again, learn these. I don't know why they give them to you down here, but learn them. It's pus, P-U-S. Those pus, pus, pus. So I put, the ending's going to be an A. So yo puse, I put, pusiste, you put, puso, él puso. Okay. So I could ask you, poner la mesa is to set the table. So I could ask you, pusiste la mesa? Did you set the table? I didn't put a two in there. I don't need it. Did he set the table? Puso la mesa, él? Did he set the table? Puso la mesa, Mark? Or did we set the table? Maybe I got Alzheimer's. I can't remember what I just did. Pusimos la mesa? I don't need nosotros. You should. Did we set the table? Pusieron la mesa? Did they set the table? Notice again, when I ask questions in the preterite, I've got to often have did. Weird English language. Pusieron la mesa? Or tú, pusiste la mesa? Did you set the table? Okay. And this is what I just taught you, how to work with those irregular forms of decir, estar, hacer, and poner. Okay, and look at these questions. Okay. And finally, here are all the verbs you need to know in section 3. These are the irregulars. Here's your irregular stems. They call them raíz. It's a root. Learn them. Di for decir. Estuv for estar. Is for hacer. Pud for to be able to. So could I? Pude llegar? Could I arrive? Pudo él llegar? Could he arrive? Pudiste hacer tu tarea? Could you? Were you able to do your homework? ¿Pudiste hacer? ¿Pusiste la mesa? Did you set the table? Okay. ¿Qué tuviste ayer? What did you have yesterday? ¿Qué tuvo él? What did he have when he had dinner? And the last one from tener, and then for traer, tra. ¿Qué trajiste? It's a J stem verb. What did you bring? Okay. ¿Qué trajeron ellos? What did they bring? Notice it's not trajeron, it's trajeron because it ends in a J. The ending is an I-R-O-N, we drop the I. Okay, look through those, get familiar. Listen to these little dialogues, and you should be good. There's a lot of little picky stuff here, but once you get used to the preterite versus the regular form, how to ask questions, that did angle in there, you don't need the subject pronoun. Okay, did you set the table? Did you eat? Or at what time did you eat supper? You should be able to ask these questions and then get yourself familiar finally to these verbs here. These are irregular. Decir, estar, hacer, poder, poner, tener, to have, very important verb, and traer. Decir is a J stem. Estar is a U stem. Hacer is an I stem. Okay, poder is a U stem. Poner is a U stem. Tener is a U stem. Okay. Notice estar and tener, very similar. And J stem is traer, to bring. Okay. Let us move on, do those examples there. And let me see if there's anything else to point out here. Take a look if you want as to why we use the accent marks. We don't have time to get too lost in the sauce on this, but take a look at why we use the accent marks. When we were doing why certain syllables are stressed the way they are in the preterite tense. Again, it wouldn't affect necessarily the way you speak, but when you're writing it, you want to include those accent marks. Okay. Here are your definite articles. You might want to remember those, right? All nouns have gender in Spanish. So, and we have to be aware whether the noun we're talking about is masculine or feminine, right? They're either masculine or feminine, and if it's singular or plural. And because of that, now we have 4 ways to say the. We should all know that by now. Masculine singular el, feminine singular la, masculine plural los, and feminine plural las. And make sure you look at that and you feel comfortable with that. Finally, we get to the last area of grammar, direct objects. All right. And that's in 6.3. Please, again, look at this. Please look at this. And this is on page 184. Okay. And direct object and direct object pronouns. So you should know what a direct object is real quickly. It'll be very clear on your exam. A direct object is the thing. It could be a person or a thing that receives the action of the verb. So I could say, I see Bob. What receives the action? Bob does. He's the action. He's a direct object. Okay. I see the tomato. It could be a thing. The tomato now is the direct object. You should all know that. And what they want you to learn here is that how to recognize a direct object, and then we want to get rid of the direct object and now say the same thing with the direct object pronoun. Okay, so what are the direct object pronouns? A pronoun is a word that stands for something else. It could be a person or a thing. So, for example, for I, it would be me, the direct object. So I could say, I see me. Okay, I'm the direct object. Paul sees me. Mary sees me. Okay, and the direct object pronoun there would be me. What about you? Mary sees you. If it's the to form, it's going to be te. Mary sees you. So me is the direct object pronoun, meaning me. Bob sees me. Te is the direct object to replace to. Mary sees you. Te. What about he? Or I'm sorry, or him. Mary sees him. Okay, it'll be lo. And Mary sees Betty or her. It'll be la. Okay. What if it's a thing? And you want to see Betty sees it. Well, if the thing is masculine and singular, it will be lo. So lo can mean him or it, masculine singular. Or what if it's a masculine, it's a feminine thing and it's singular, it'll be la, it. It can mean, so Mary sees it, you use la. Finally, we have the plural direct object pronouns, us. Mary sees us. How do I say that? What's the word for us? It'll be nos. Nos. And finally, Mary sees them. Well, if they're, it will be los if the them is, if they're all men, all male, or men and women mixed. Los, Mary sees them. If it's just a bunch of women, you would use las. What if it's things that are masculine? Tomates, los tomates. It'll be los, would mean them. And what if we wanted to say Mary sees the fruits, and now they're feminine? It'll be las. Let's take a look a little more clearly at this. And here's your chart. Okay. Here is your chart on page 185. Here are your, what they call pronombres de objeto directo, your direct object pronouns. You need to know these because you got to sub out people and things and rewrite sentences. Getting rid of the thing, tomato, or the person, Betty, and you're going to be using these direct object pronouns. Okay, so me means me, te means you, informal, lo can mean him, or it can mean you if it's masculine, or it if it's a masculine thing, like a tomato. I see the tomato, lo. La will mean her, I see her, or I see you, usted. If you're using usted and it's a female, it'll be la. Or it, if the thing is a fruit. I see the fruit, I see it, it will be la. Okay, he sees us. Us is nos. Okay, then finally, I see them if it's men or men and women, los. I see them if it's a group of women, las. Or if it's a bunch of things and they're all masculine, the tomatoes, it would be los, would be them. And if it's a bunch of fruit, it would be las. Okay, now, what did I want to show you? When we use direct object pronouns, again, they're used just like in English. We get rid of the person or the thing, and we either put in me, you, him, her, it, us, or them. We just sub the persons or the things out with those. The same in Spanish. So let's take a look, and we're going to go to this point here, number 4. It's very important because this is where English and Spanish are very different. In English, if I want to say that I see Bob, and now I want to use the pronoun and I want to say I see him, I get rid of Bob and I just say I see him. I put the pronoun where? After the verb, after the conjugated verb. If I see a thing like the tomato, I see the tomato. Now I want to get rid of tomato and I want to put the pronoun it. I see it. I put the it after the verb. In Spanish, it's just the opposite. Please be careful and watch this. It's just the opposite. Okay. You put the direct object pronoun immediately before the conjugated verb. So you would say, I, it, see. I, him, see. I, her, see. Okay? Very different, the placement. So let's take a look. Puedo encontrar el libro en la biblioteca. Can I find the book in the library? What is the direct object? It's the book. And you put it before the conjugated verb. So you would say, yo lo puedo encontrar en la biblioteca. Notice I don't need those lovely subject pronouns. That's what throws English speakers off. I could tell from puedo, that means I can. The I is in there. So yo lo puedo encontrar. I can see it in the library. And that's how you would say it. Now, I don't know why they teach us this here, but you can put the object pronoun after the verb when you have two verbs and one is an infinitive. So you could say, yo puedo encontrarlo en la biblioteca, but let's forget that for now. You're going to be in a situation on your exams generally where you're only going to have one verb. So we always put the direct object pronoun, whether it's me, te, lo, la, or los, or nos, before the conjugated verb. Okay? I want you to be aware of it. Let's take a look. Okay. In addition to being used to mean it and him, her, or them, the pronouns lo, la, los, and las may be used to refer to people that you're addressing as ustedes. Okay, which I kind of explained it already. So mi madre la conoce. Right away, I can understand what that means. My mother knows her. Okay, conocer is to know, and generally it's going to be a person. My mother knows her. Again, where does the direct object pronoun go? It goes before the conjugated verb. In English, it would go after. And how do you say her? It's la. Okay. Again, go back to this chart, memorize it, okay? And be thankful I don't teach vosotros. It's one less thing to learn, but you should know these things. Lo can mean him or it if it's a masculine thing, or it can mean you if you're using usted. La means her or it if it's a feminine thing, and you if it's usted. Everything's there. You don't need me now. You've got that chart. Okay, so let's move on. Look at this, and this is going to throw a lot of people off. Invite, you should know what invite is. It's from the verb invitar. So invite, we should know immediately. Oh, that's the preterite. He just taught us that. Invite, oh, that ending, that's the I invited. So los invite means I invited los. What's los? Them. Okay, I invited them to eat, and it's probably a mixed group. It could be men and women. If I had las invité, then it would be a group of women. Las invité a cenar. Notice that the direct object pronoun always comes before the conjugated verb. In Spanish, we often don't use the subject pronoun. So we can start a sentence off with an object pronoun, and that will throw off English speakers tremendously. Okay? If I said la conocí, that would conocer is to meet. Conocí. What's the I ending? It's for yo. So I'm saying I met her. La conocí. Yo la conocí or la conocí. So get familiar with that. Get comfortable with the fact that your object pronouns always come before the conjugated verb, and you often will not start a sentence off with a subject pronoun. Your listeners will know once you conjugate that verb if you're saying I, you, he, she, it. Okay, look at this. Te llevamos a la fiesta. You got to remember what llevar means. Llevar is to carry or to take. Llevar. So, are we taking you to the party? Te llevamos. It could also mean, did we take you to the party? Te llevamos a la fiesta, because llevar in the predator AR verbs in the nosotros form have they have the same stems and the same endings just for nosotros. But I don't need a nosotros. Nosotros te llevamos a la fiesta. I don't need the nosotros. Okay. Direct object and direct object pronouns, inanimate objects with people. So again, I taught you that lo can mean him, or it can mean it if it's a masculine singular item, right? La can mean her, or la can mean it if it's a feminine singular item. Los can mean them, masculine plural, or las can mean them, feminine plural. So make sure you look at that. Okay. Look at this. Look at some of these sentences. They want you to listen to something, and then they ask you a question, true or false. Well, you got to understand what this question means. Domesticaron, aron. So you should say domesticar. Oh, I saw that verb. It's an AR verb. Aron. Oh, they domesticated. Now, what is it saying? They domesticated it in America. They domesticated it in America. True or false? Okay. Look at this. Los españoles las llevaron a Europa. The Spanish, llevar is to carry. Aron, carried them. But what's the them? Los españoles las carried them. It must be a feminine plural thing, probably plantas, plants. Look at this. Las comen en México, Guatemala, y El Salvador. Okay, this is in the present tense, comen. But, so what is this saying? Ellos comen. So they eat them in Mexico. What is the them? Las. Okay, and the las, it must be a feminine plural thing. And I think this is about plants, so it must be las plantas. Look at this. Ponen. This is the present tense of poner. Put. They put. Ellos lo ponen en agua. They put it in water. Ellos lo ponen en agua. I'm putting the ellos in because I can see ellos is my subject, but I don't need it in Spanish. Lo ponen And agua means they put it in water. Whatever the it is, I'm not sure. We have to go back to the reading, but it's a masculine singular thing. Could be maíz, maybe el maíz, the corn. They put it in water. Here they put the corn, el maíz, in water with sugar. Lo ponen en agua con azúcar. They put it in water with sugar. Again, I don't need the subject pronoun they. It's here in the verb. The it goes before the conjugated verb. Get yourself used to this. Look at this. Tradicionalmente las hacen de maíz. Traditionally, hacen, ellos hacen. Traditionally, they make them from corn. Why do I know that's them? Well, that's my direct object. So whatever the them is, it's a feminine plural thing. Los españoles llevaron. Now I'm in my preterite. Llevar is to carry. Carried them, took them, carried it. The Spanish carried it to Europe. I don't know what the lo is. It could also be him, but I know they're talking about things. Carried him or carried it to Europe. You gotta go back to the reading or the narrative to understand, okay? En muchos países lo llaman. Llamar is to call. They call. So in many countries, lo llaman. They call what? It. Choclo. Okay, so make sure you can identify the its or the thems, you know what they're referring to, know that they come before the conjugated verb. And remember, you can start a sentence off with a las or a lo, because in Spanish, I don't need the subject pronoun. Get yourself used to this, go through these, and you should do very well on your exercises coming up, and you should do well on your exam. Again, we can look at some of these. No me conoces. This is in the present tense. Don't you know me? Okay, so remember, me or me is the direct object pronoun. They always come before the conjugated verb. So, no me conoces. Don't you know me? And then she identifies herself. Soy Mari. I'm Mari, George's friend. Okay, la tire. Look at tire. You got to know the verb tirar, to throw out. Tire. What is that ending for an AR verb? It's the yo form. So I threw it out. How would I say I threw it out? La tiré, if the it is feminine. So let's say it was a fruit. Yo tiré la fruta. Or la tiré. I threw it out. Everybody got that? The it has to come before the conjugated verb, and I don't need the yo. Okay, here's another one. Las puse en la cocina. This is good for you. Look at puse. You got to know what that is. It's from poner. It's the preterite. Pus, P-U-S. Look at the ending. E. It's the I form. I put. Las, them, feminine plural, whatever it is. Maybe the fruits. Yo puse las frutas en la cocina. I put the fruits in the kitchen. Or las puse en la cocina. I put them in the kitchen. I don't need the yo. I can tell it's yo from this. Does everybody see this? Porque no nos invitaron a la fiesta. Porque, you should know, means because. Because. Invitaron. Invitar is to invite. So invitaron. They did not. It's the they form. Aron. They did not invite us. The nos has got to come before the verb. And it always comes immediately before the verb. No nos invitaron. Okay. No me conoces. You always have to have the direct object pronoun right before the verb. Okay, the no can't get involved there. It can't split them. Look at this. Te veo allí. Now that's from the verb ver. Veo is the present tense. I see you there. I'll see you there. Yo te veo ahí or te veo ahí. I use te. I'll see you. I'm using the to form. If it was usted and it was masculine, I'd say lo veo ahí. If it was a female, I would say la veo a usted allí. Okay, no lo conoces. Look at that. Conoces is to know. You know, present tense. Don't you know him? Don't you know her would be no la conoces. Okay. Okay, lo puse. Puse again is I put or placed. I puse. I put it in the cocina. I don't know what the item is, but I know that it's masculine and singular. All right, if it had been feminine, I would have la. If it were plural, I would have had los. Feminine plural, las. Los tire. Tirar. Tire. Now I'm in what? The preterite. I've got those accent marks going. Tire. I threw it away. I threw it away. I can tell by the ending. I threw them away. Sorry. I don't know what it was, but los. It could have been the tomatoes. Yo tiré los tomates. Los tiré. Now, how do I say them, the pronoun? I'm getting rid of tomates. I substitute the pronoun los. Okay. I think take a look at this. And here they're dealing with place settings, tenedor, fork, cuchillo. Make sure you understand those terms. Okay. Here's a reading piece on Chile. Chile has a huge coastline, because of the upwelling of the cold Humboldt Current, has incredible sea life and seafood available. And there's an article, a small reading on the seafood of Chile. Okay, read through it. Make sure you can understand it and answer those questions. You're going to have a reading on your exam. You're going to have listening on your exam, and it's going to incorporate direct object pronouns. It's going to incorporate the preterite tense. It's going to incorporate how to answer questions. Claro que sí, por supuesto, etc. Como no. So I think that about does it for today's lesson. And I should be posting a recording of this meeting. Make sure you check with your course plan constantly. I'll try to post when things are due, but it's really up to you to see things when things are due and get them to me on time. More or less every 3 weeks, we will have a chapter test. Chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will follow chronologically in that order. And I don't have much more to add to it than that. So best of luck, and that will be it for today's meeting. Okay. I hope I did. You are sharing. Stop share. Okay, participants 6.